Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Business Travel Show Europe 2022. How many of you were here yesterday? Fantastic. And then a few of you, today's your first day? Well, welcome. So I hope, for those of you who were here yesterday, I hope you had a fabulous day. And for those of you who are here today, I hope you have a great day as well. So thank you for joining us. My name is Jen Bankard. I'm the Senior Director of Content Solutions and Conferences for the BTN Group. I feel very honored to be moderating this particular session with such a fantastic panel. And I'll let them all introduce themselves here in just a moment. So let me get the housekeeping information out of the way. First of all, anyone who is joining us virtually, welcome. And I encourage you to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from. And so obviously with my responsibilities at the BTN Group, being involved with conference content, helping to plan this event as well as many other events, feedback is incredibly critical and it's so helpful to us in the future. However, I'm also a little competitive. So I always want, it's not about getting the best feedback, but I want to make sure we get a really good response rate for this session. So I just want to make sure everyone knows how to make sure that they will get the little reminder to do the session survey. So is everyone in the mobile app? Okay, so go to this particular session. And so if you haven't, apologies if this is repeat instructions for some of you. So when you go into the agenda for this session, next to the live discussion button, there's a little button that looks like a calendar. Just make sure you've tapped that, and that adds it to your personal schedule. And that's what then makes sure that gets you the notification after the session ends to say, please fill out the survey. It's super quick. It's just a 5-star rating with some comments. But I think we all would appreciate any and all feedback that you have for us. And I want to be able to say that we got the best response rate for this particular session. So, right? Okay. So today's topic is it's an important one. And it's one I've been hearing a lot about on the show floor. I did, I think, 11 interviews yesterday, and I think about half of them, people wanted to talk about the changing role of the travel manager. And so we know that the role has gone through a lot of changes over the past few years. It's become a much more wider strategic role for the business. And everyone wants to stay relevant, right? You want to be able to show your worth to your organization. So we're going to have a conversation about that today. So why don't we first just do a round of introductions. So we'll just go straight down the line. So starting with you, Chris.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jens Vongier. Does it sound okay? Okay. I'm working as a partner for the Travel Consulting Group in Germany. We are consulting leisure and corporate travel companies in regard to strategic aspects, operational aspects, as well as travel technology impact. And in this role, I'm working now a couple of years. I'm in the industry since the late 90s. So I've learned a lot the last 25 years, and it's always a matter of change. And I'm more than happy to be here today.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Scott?
Scott Davis. I'm the CEO of the Institute of Travel Management, ITM, and we are the UK and Ireland's membership association, running on a not-for-profit basis with about 5,000 members.
Fantastic. Katarina.
Hi, good morning. Katarina Navarro. I'm the Global Category Manager for Travel Mobility with Capgemini. As such, I lead a team of global buyers and travel managers to manage our program. And Capgemini, for those of you who don't know, so we're a global IT consulting company.
Fantastic. And Christoph.
Yes, hello. My name is Christoph Cagnier. I'm Travel Manager of the Merck Group based in Darmstadt, Germany. And in my spare time, I'm also currently president of the German Business Travel Association, and in the industry since more than 30 years.
Wonderful. So if we could go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to do our Slido. Since the title of this session is the Post-COVID Travel Manager, I wanted to hear what all of you think that means. And this is also a great way to get the virtual audience involved as well. So we're going to do a quick Slido. So if everyone either goes to slido.com, or if you happen to have that app on your phone, or if you want to scan the QR code, and then that's the event phrase. I'd like you to just type in a word or a very short phrase that you think describes the post-COVID travel manager. And then panelists, as these words come in, I want you to sort of think about maybe which word or phrase resonates with you the most. Oh, we've got some good ones coming in. Visionary. First of all, I'm just glad that it's working, right? I'm always glad. I'm always like, is it going to work? Busy, hectic. And not just busy, busy with an exclamation point.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty, yeah.
Problem solver.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Problem solver. It's just another couple seconds, and then panel, I'm actually going to go a little out of order with the outline and start with this. So let's just sort of, again, let's go down the road, but we'll start on the other end. We'll start with you, Christoph. As you look at these words and phrases that are coming in, is there any one that resonates with you more than another?
Yeah, on one hand, when I start with the title already, post-COVID, because COVID for me is just a little bit an accelerator, what has become the case anyway, if you ask me personally. Yeah, I mean, there was a disruption we have never seen before, no doubt about this, and also we have now the challenges with everything what's going on, but what definitely comes to my mind, and after quite some years in this role, when I read complex, then I would say this is definitely something which describes our job extremely well, because usually everybody in the company says, hey, it's not so difficult. I mean, I just need a flight and to go somewhere. But there are a lot of regulations we have to take care for. We have duty of care, stuff like this. Tons of regulations by authorities we have to follow. And also we see, I mean, walking here through the Business Travel Show, you see a lot of good solutions, but they are concentrating on one spot of a total program. And the challenge is to bring all these different spots together to one seamless, and I see some of you start smiling already, or laughing, to one seamless process. And that's the biggest challenge. And that's the outside world. And the next thing is we have to manage this internally as well. We have to include tons of different departments, tax, HR, legal, IT, data security. So there's a lot of things we have to bring together. And at the end of the day, it is for two major reasons. On one hand, it is for the success of the company, because a business trip is not for leisure. Yeah. And on one hand, we are not talking about bags, packages, or goods. We are talking of one of our most valuable assets, and this is our employees, and this must also be fit to their work-life balance as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Katerina, how about you?
Yeah,
What resonates with you the most from this?
Most of them.
Most of them.
Yeah, I think I find myself in all of this, which is great. And I think complex is really a good one, but I think problem solver as well. Problem solver, that's always been one of our key characteristic of solving problems, seeing fires before they even emerge. And I think all that has changed right now. There's maybe more problems, and the problems are different. But what helps us do this is we're used to that. We're used to it being complex. Now there's more pieces to the puzzle that we have to juggle. And I think what our big role as well as internally is to figure out a way to remove the complexity for the end user, because we don't want the traveler to have the disruption we have, but we need our key stakeholders and our management to understand the internal complexity that we help take away, and that the problems change, the solutions will change, which means we need maybe more education on certain levels, more involvement with different environments. I think we all started talking a lot more to security than we have before. We're now talking to the CSR departments, because sustainability is very important. And again, depending on which business line you are, so for me in consulting, we have no factories, we're not burning anything, we have people. So my people traveling is actually the biggest carbon footprint. And suddenly that becomes a new role, and I think it's our task to keep evolving, but make sure a bit as well that our key stakeholders see all the value add we provide by simplifying things on the outside and not letting everybody see the crazy, busy, hectic, complex lifestyle we have. Because as part of it, we enjoy it as well. Come on, let's be realistic. Part of that is fun.
Sure. Absolutely, yeah. And I'm glad you brought up sustainability, because Sustainable Advisor popped up on the list here as well. Scott, what about you? What's resonating with you from this list?
Well, I'm glad that the one word that came the most is busy, because actually it's really hard to describe travel managers in one word. They are extraordinary people and they do extraordinary things. But if you're going to settle on one word, busy is not a bad one. And it probably would have been the same word if you'd asked this question prior to COVID as well. It's busy with different things. I always imagine the workload of a travel manager like a table like this, and so much stuff will fit on it. And the travel managers have to work out what they can deal with on it and what's going to slip off the table. There are so many things and complexities relating to travel these days that are needing to be added to the table, that these ladies and gents are often removing other things to make space. But yeah, they're certainly busy. We'll get into talking about the skill sets that they involve, but they're also arch collaborators and communicators right now, more than ever before.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott. And Jens?
I fully agree with you three, but I would focus on the multiple roles topic, because I think it's an important thing to understand the role and the job description of a travel manager. If I looked more than 20 years back, it was a travel purchasing manager. Christoph mentioned the different IT solutions. Katharina talked about the well-being of employees, and I think it's the mixture of all. So the travel manager in 2022 is the sustainability manager, the duty of care manager, the IT project manager. Yes, I heard the word babysitter for employees. I do not love that word. It's more the well-being manager for employees, meaning make them happy. In this, another word which I do not like is war for talents. Make your employees happy about working for your company. It's one of the biggest challenges, I think, to keep the employees staying in my company, if I look on the problems which we see in Germany in the market. So I think this multiple roles describes it pretty well, even from a top-down approach, to rethink on the value of me as a travel manager. Which roles do I need to fulfill to deliver the signature service to my company? I think this is the most important question for a travel manager, and to go through this question on a day-to-day level to see which is my position in that, and what can I do, and and where I need to ask for support. I'm a consultancy. So where do I need external support or internal support? And I need to describe what I want to achieve. I think this is the most important thing from my view.
Excellent. Thank you all, and thank you for everyone who participated in the poll. So now we're going to switch to the app and do a few polls in there. So out of curiosity, I started noticing that there have been postings quite frequently for travel managers lately. So I thought it might be fun. So I grabbed a bunch of job descriptions, about 20 of them, mostly from here in the UK and Europe. A handful, probably about 2/3 of the positions were based here in the UK or Europe, and then about 1/3 of the job descriptions were for postings in the US. They varied from anywhere from a global travel manager position to regional travel manager positions to specific positions on a team, like a hotel sourcing manager. So it certainly, this activity that I did was not very scientific, because it wasn't comparing apples to apples, but I really wanted to just get a sense of, were there any commonalities in terms of skill sets, experience, et cetera, that companies are looking for when they're hiring people in these travel manager or travel buyer roles? So if we can go into the polls, and so if we can go ahead and deploy the first poll. And so I'm going to have audience, you're going to do the poll in the app, and then I'm going to ask my panelists to grab a piece of paper and a marker, and they're going to write their answers down on the paper, and we're going to see. I haven't told them what the most common thing was among all the job descriptions, so I just want to see how well everyone sort of takes a guess. So the first, can we pull the app up on the screen? So the first poll question is, so based on a review of these travel manager descriptions, what essential duty or responsibility was most frequently listed? Swap card. So these were the 4 options. Was it delivering best-in-class employee experience in alignment with travel program strategy? Was it to source, negotiate, and enhance relationships with preferred travel suppliers? Was it to work closely with the wider travel team on budget and resource planning? Or was it to assess the performance and efficiency of current travel programs and implementing improvements when necessary? So panel, if you want to jot down which one of those four you think was most common among the job descriptions, and we'll see what the audience had to say. So has everyone found the polls in the app? So if you go to that live discussion button, and then there's a heading that says polling. So right now we're on poll number 1. So this is about essential duties and responsibilities. So give it a few seconds for those answers to come in. A little refresh here. All right, so it looks like the audience has guessed that the most common essential duty or responsibility that sort of was found among all the job descriptions was assessing the performance and efficiency of current travel programs, implementing improvements when necessary. What was your guess?
My guess was also the 4.
4, so the
But I have
budget and
would have
resource
wished
planning.
It would have been the number 1, but it's still the number 4, I think. So yeah.
So actually, nope, that was. And then Scott, what was your guess?
Also, I think I was caught in the what I wish for rather than what is reality, but this is what we feel it should be.
So yeah.
I align.
Yeah.
Not the first one.
Same for me.
Yeah.
If your program
Yeah.
does not fit or is accepted, you might be in trouble.
So, this is actually what was most common among all the job descriptions. It was to work closely with the wider travel team on budget and resource planning. So, just interesting what people think, should be, maybe, and what actually was found. Again, just a very unscientific experiment. All right, so let's go to the second poll. So this is based on what we required skills people were, looking for in the job description. So this is, was it ability to work on a cross-functional team? Was it having the skill to understand how data can drive and support key decision-making? Was the required skill to have excellent interpersonal and communication skills? Or was the required skill most frequently listed having highly developed problem-solving skills? All right, so I'll start down with you, Christoph, this time. So you said C.
It's the excellent interpersonal and communication skills, because this also includes for me problem solving, also understanding for the issues not only of our employees, also for the industry, because especially these days you see what challenges this industry has, and you have to really rethink how to communicate and how to act.
Sure. Katerina, what did you think?
I stay in the problem solving.
Problem
first.
solving?
Yeah.
Scott?
I put A, but I agree. I wish it was what Christoph said, because I think that's what it should be.
I fully agree with you,
And
Scott.
then
It was a mixture between A and C. I think the combination is the key for having success. So, yeah.
So interestingly enough, it was having an understanding of how data can drive and support key decision making. So again, it's just
that's what you hired an analyst for, and then you plug it in your team with the people that can communicate.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is where we're all going wrong.
so. But again, it is kind of interesting, right, to see what's being listed, and then this last one is, I think it's the most fun one, I think. So in terms of experience and qualifications that we're looking for, in terms of people who are applying for these travel manager jobs, is it to be proficient in Microsoft Office, that suite of products? Is it to have experience working with travel and expense systems like Concur? Is it just to have some sort of previous corporate travel experience, whether that's on the buyer or the supplier side? Or was it to have a bachelor's degree or some equivalency of that? So this was experience and qualifications. All right, so let's see what our audience thinks. So most people are saying that previous corporate travel experience, either on the buyer or supplier side. Jens?
I would also say it's C. I do not hope it's A with the Microsoft Office suite. So I agree with C, and I think this is especially because we are in fast-pacing times. So there is at that stage no time to bring someone on speed. I think this is one of the problem which is combined with the words like hectic, like busy, like a lot of things to do. And I think this is the most important thing, that you need a hands-on person immediately in that field of work.
Sure. Scott?
I agree with C. I think there are many roles in travel where you don't need to come from the industry. A fresh perspective is good. This is one, it's going to take you too long to learn if you don't already have that.
Sure. Katarina?
Yeah, same. And I find it really sad that we're still putting, and I see the resumes as well, people put their MS Office skills and the degree, yes, but honestly, it's some background on the complexity of the industry. That's what's important.
Christoph, C as well?
Yeah, I make a C as well. I make a small C.
Small C.
Because my my fear is a little bit that most of the people voted for a bachelor degree or equivalent. And by the way, this is for me one of the problems we currently see in this industry, because regardless which job or when you grew up, everybody will tell you it starts already at breakfast with your parents. You have to go to university, you have to do this and those, otherwise you will not gonna make it. So, and what's missing is a little bit the respect or the attractiveness or the value for all these jobs we have in this industry. And you need people who are passionate to work on this, but after the last 2 years, we were discussing it before, the last 2 years, the industry did not the perfect job, and everybody was telling how difficult it is to survive in the business travel industry. And now everybody is surprised why they don't get people, or don't attract people to come back. So that's for me the challenge. And if you're always looking for someone who has a highest degree, so I'm really interesting to see the final result.
I think a lot of you are going to be surprised/disappointed. It was being proficient in Microsoft Office. That was listed on every single job description. Every single one. That was
There you go. If you can send an email, you can be a travel manager. Apparently, it's crazy.
So, all right. So thank you for engaging in my fun experiment. So, and we can go ahead and pull that down from the screen. We don't need the pulling up anymore. So. All right, so let's get into some other questions. So Christoph, I'm going to start with you. Talk to us a little bit about how your role has changed in the past 2 years and how you've been demonstrating your value to your company.
Okay, as mentioned, I would not concentrate really on the last 2 years. Yeah? The only thing I have to mention in the last 2 years to our colleagues, because usually they have the impression, okay, what are you doing? Because nobody's traveling, yeah, because no one really understands what we are doing. So this was a little bit my challenge, but I think it was accepted after a short time. But however, the whole role has really developed or evolved drastically over I would say, especially the last 10, 15 years. Yeah, it comes to more to also what Jens mentioned. I mean, you are the multiple worker here, because you have different roles, you have different hats on. Now sustainability comes on top, and we have to combine all these things. So these are really the challenges we have to balance out finally. And it's also interesting. A couple of years ago, travel was more, you were more in the area, this is the fun part of the job. Yeah. Traveling, experience, staying nice hotels, flying, but now it's different, yeah, because we are in the discussions when they're talking about budgets, and travel budget is quite a portion in almost every company in US especially, but also in our company it plays a big role, and also we have to act as somebody who gives advice. Recommendation, how to bring it down, what could be the options. At the end of the day, we are just we don't bring solutions, we're just showing options. We are not the budget owner. Yeah? And also, when we are talking about the strategic impact, I mean, travel usually has no strategic impact on finally the goods or products your company is producing. But On the other hand, and this is also an interesting piece, when you talk about those people that, yeah, but how do you sell your products? And selling your products means you need to be somewhere, you need to go somewhere, yeah? And also, it's part, we also had this war for talents or however, or attraction and retention. Also, sometimes people forget you also have to retain your people, yeah? And not only attract people to come, but also make them happy to stay. And this is also part of it. If you, I mean, if you have a global role and you drill them down to go always use the cheapest just to save money here, they are frustrated. And I mean, you know it best. Traveling should be usually, or best case, your whole job should be fun. Yeah, travel sometimes is not really fun. Yeah, because you have to concentrate also on other things as well. So also the discussions we have with HR are completely different to that what it was many years before. And this is definitely one of the biggest challenges, and not only related to the last 2 years.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate that you were talking about, so for example, with budgeting, you may not be the budget owner, but you have that opportunity to influence, right? Because you're giving advice, you're sharing options. So travel managers really do have a great opportunity to have an influence on the business, and especially now that you've had an opportunity to build even greater relationships with so many different kinds of stakeholders over the past few years. Katarina, so you recently hired someone new for your team, correct?
I hired 2 new people.
You hired 2 new people.
I'm so happy. I finally, for the first time in the last 18 months, have a full team now.
Congratulations.
Which is great. Yes.
Wonderful. So how did you look at the hiring process differently this time around than maybe you did in the past? Were there different duties you were asking people to perform, or did you list different skill sets or requirements for the job? How did you just look at the whole process differently?
So we don't put MS Office on our job description anymore. So and then even the bachelor's and whatever degree, because I look to hire somewhat experienced people, and actually made a step up. I hired more experienced people. And if you just go on experience by count of years in the industry, the 2 people I brought on board, they actually have more years in the industry than me.
Why was that so important to you to hire a more senior?
Yeah, for me it's important because it's strategic positions. I have a buying organization and I have a travel management organization structured regionally. And travel management right now is even more important than the buying part, because they're the ones that do the day-to-day engagement with our key stakeholders, with our travelers, making sure we understand what the bottlenecks, the pains, the issues are, so we can lead those back to the supply chain and figure out a way to resolve with processes, engagement, whatever is needed. And I needed somebody who understands the complexity of the system, who knows the checklist of, because ultimately that's what's nice of our environment, right? We ultimately all use a similar sets of same suppliers and solutions, right? You come in, you ask the question, what's your TNC, what's your card, are you individual cards, or are you BTA, or are you a mix? Do you have expense, yes or no, what's your policy? And once you have that done, if you have the right experience level, you can go and run. And I tell you, this needs implementation, this needs some guidance, here's the KPI that's out of line, go do it for me. Yeah. And it's a much quicker and onboarding than bringing somebody who's junior. And even in the face of my stakeholders, to have this very quick level setting of, yes, I have experience, yes, I know what I'm talking about, I don't know your company culture yet, so you have to bring me up to speed, and do you look more at budget or more at well-being, or what's the balance? Sure. But I know my stuff in the industry, and I can have that very educated conversation with you, and that is very important. Great.
Thanks for sharing that.
And just quickly, because my role actually did change. My role evolved. I used to be travel and meetings up until half a year ago. Mobility now. It's mobility, so I took in fleet as well, and it's really, and that isn't a clear outcome of COVID and what we define as the new normal, the new employee experience, the back to office or not, work from anywhere, work from client, wherever, is that we now see a much bigger convergence of what used to be a commute and business travel to an overall holistic mobility solution. Yeah. And I think that's a great opportunity, not just for the industry. So I'm telling my TMC, if you want to get on board now with mobility, please be my guest. I'm happy to, but also for us as evolving skill sets.
Yeah.
Fleet's different. I'm still upskilling, but it's really exciting, and there's still lots of new problems to solve and lots of new solutions to put in place. So it's good.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Jens, so there has been a lot of talk, and even Christoph, you used this word a couple times. So there's been talk about how travel managers need to move to be more strategic and less tactical than they've been in the past. So how have you been advising your travel manager customers to be more strategic?
Okay. Two words I would pick up: engagement and mobility manager. These are two key words for me, even with my clients. So it's no longer the travel purchasing manager, it's the mobility manager. This is one major topic for me. And the second thing is, it's less purchasing, it's more engagement. These are two things which I think are really important. From me as a consultant, I try to explain my clients that it's important for a travel manager to describe their processes, to create KPIs, to define their house in a way that they can communicate it even to the boss, to the board, and make me relevant for that what I do. Even that means operational or technical travel management that can be done in a shared service center in Manila, in Bangalore, in Timisoara or Gdansk. But I think this strategic part needs a clear view and vision from a travel manager or mobility manager. This needs to be described, and then he needs to go to his boss and needs to make it relevant, and needs also to try to find a basis to make it as a strategic goal for the company. Even from a view on the retain of people in the company, it's really important. And I've seen a lot of travel managers in the past who've not done that, and then it's getting difficult in these fast times to stay in that role, because why I am there if I cannot explain why I'm there? So this is then exactly the point which I see quite often, and I think this is a point where each of you need to think on a day-to-day level, what's the value, what do I need to do, and what do I need to achieve? And on the other hand, I do see software suppliers, I will not name one of these, they are selling their software to the accounting department. And then there's a travel tool bought by the company, and the travel manager is asked to implement it. Very nice if you haven't described the processes. I will not name that supplier.
Yeah, don't name the supplier.
No, never ever. But this is a brave new world of that the travel manager is getting a technical fulfillment partner for the accounting, and that for me is a serious risk.
But I think to your point of KPIs, I think the KPIs changed as well. So I think you need
Sure.
to
Absolutely.
adapt your KPIs
Absolutely.
to changing environment.
Absolutely. Fully agree.
And in an ideal world, the travel manager would have been involved with accounting and making the decision.
But you're only involved if you describe your needs in a house of service or you name it, or description of that what you need to achieve, and that means also the business part of that, and then we are back on this multiple roles. Also on a process part, I need to describe why it's important to use additional data in a purchasing process with an online booking machine to break it down, and I need to describe that. I need to make my manager aware that he knows if we discuss technical solutions in another part of my organization, I should sit on that table.
Because if it's going to have any sort of impact on travel, you want to be involved in that conversation. Scott, moving over to you. So a few months ago, ITM launched the future role of the Travel Manager Task Force to identify how to raise awareness of the Travel Manager role. So can you share some of the key insights and findings from that task force with us?
I kind of can. It's
kind of.
It's due. I know
it's like it's
due to launch in about a month's time. So I can't give all the details, unfortunately. But this exercise is a really fascinating one for us. Excuse me. So we had 13 travel managers and travel buyers, all different remits, different responsibilities, different sectors. And we got the help of the quite brilliant Louise Kilgannon from Festive Road as well to help us convene. And it's really about reframing and really repositioning, elevating the role of the travel buyer. As I mentioned before, as you probably picked up, I'm the biggest fan of travel buyers. I think they're amazing people, and the majority of them have done a great job of raising their profile during the pandemic. You know, very often it's only when something stops that you appreciate the full value of it. And our research shows that around about 2/3 of travel buyers gained responsibility during the pandemic, and the same proportion, 2/3, were able to deepen their relationships with senior stakeholders and raise their profile within the business. That's great. What we would like to be able to do is understand the changes that have taken place within the role and help the other third that have not been able to make those steps with some playbooks, if you like, to help them through that. So it's a really, really fascinating exercise. The role continues to evolve, and we're just trying to give travel buyers the tools to optimize their value and help them to walk their value proposition around the business. And this is absolutely essential reading for a supplier, because if you're now trying to do business with these travel buyers in a new world, you need to understand what it is they're looking to achieve and the challenges they face every day.
Absolutely. Well, I know we'll all be on the lookout for the findings and those playbooks. So when are you expected to release it again?
We think 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
A genius called Kerry Douglas in our team at ITM is leading the project, and you can get in touch with her with the precise details. But yeah, it'll be very soon.
So we'll keep an eye out. I'm sure we'll cover it in BTN Europe. We'll look for the press release. So, you know, we've obviously talked about how, again, the role continues to morph and change. And, you know, you talked about this. It's like making sure that your manager knows, other departments know both what you can bring to the table, but also why you need to know certain pieces of information. So just as we look holistically in terms of how travel managers can best continue to demonstrate their value, like, how do you really make yourself indispensable to an organization? Like, if you had like maybe one nugget of advice to share in terms of like, if I was not here, they would really miss me. Do you have any thoughts on that? Yes.
I think it's a bunch of words. It's difficult to put it into one word. So for me, it's really now difficult to find one word which gives the answer, because it's far too complex to answer in one word. I have no idea at that stage. Maybe in a couple of minutes.
Complex is definitely one of the things make it or describes it, but there are, from my perspective, a couple of things which are really key. Yeah, on one hand, for me, data definitely is key. Yeah, you need to understand the whole data from your company. And that's, by the way, the challenge. If someone who was working for procurement, because this is very often where it is located, takes over this position. Yeah, I think Jens, you know it best how it works when someone who has no industry background, bless you, comes into this new position and has zero understanding of the whole industry. Yeah. So, because having the data is one thing, okay? Looking into ERP systems, good luck, depending on how much you have. But understanding the data, and also why, what are the reasons for something going in this way or in this direction, and also how to tackle it, giving good advice. I think this is the biggest challenge, and you only can do this if you have a full understanding, on one hand from the industry, and also you need to understand the culture of your company also a little bit, because each company is a little bit different. And also sometimes if you are sometime with the company, you have a good understanding what's going to happen if, like we currently have, like we see, now all the restrictions are lifted, and it was clear that most of travel will restart in a drastic way. This was, for me, no surprise. Yeah, for others, it would be no big deal. So the expertise from the industry, including understanding your full data, is extremely, or it's one of the key elements you have to drive. And to add one more thing, how they would miss you, by the way. Very often, I mean, when it's come to escalation, it is on the desk of the responsible manager. Yeah, and then we have it also here, problem solver. If you are able to really solve problems, then you make yourself really valuable to the company, that they don't want to miss you.
Yeah.
This is one word which I have now in mind again. It's a word which I like pretty much, in that it's a signature service. I think this is what Christoph picked up. If you look on a consultancy company, on a manufacturer, on an automotive company, there is not one size fits all, even if a software developer tells that to you. I think it's a question that you need to develop your best fit service for your company. And this is a strong task, and difficult, but at the end, you need to find that way for your company. And this means also running workshops with department heads, discussing with your management about what they expect from you. And you think they expect A, but after the workshop it's B, and at the end it ends with C. So that's exactly the point where you need to drive your department, your responsibility to your perfect fit signature service. And if you achieve that goal, you are relevant, because then you're part of the strategy and the company culture.
I agree, and I mean, for lack of another word, I think connector maybe is a good way of setting as well, because it's like it's bringing this very rich expertise of the overall complexity of what's still to come in changing in the marketplace, and then translating that by listening to the corporate functions, because ultimately the traveler is one piece, but everybody looks at the traveler from a different angle, depending on whether you are in HR, whether you are in finance, or you're in security, or you're in CSR. And understanding what is their current objective, what is driving them, what do they have in their year roadmap, and what is their key priority. And then for CSR right now, sustainability. It's our commitment, science-based targets, and carbon neutrality. And their travel, they're very important, so we can action. For our CFO right now, it's this, oh my God, travel is back, and by the way, we have inflation. So now my finance people are asking me, so what about inflation and travel? I have no idea, I'm no economist, but I can get some data and I can prove some data points. That's important right now. For security, the whole COVID thing is important. The new normal is important. Okay, now we allow people to not come to the office anymore and work from somewhere else. Maybe in the future we're thinking we'll allow people to work from anywhere where we have an office for 3 weeks of the year. Again, how does that impact? And understanding how these priorities for different functions change, and how potentially, because the functions don't always talk to each other, but you sit in the middle. So you can say, well, HR is saying they really need to improve travel comfort. Finance is saying cost is really tight, but you need to spend a bit more to make HR happy. And you're kind of this sort of internal ambassador to the company who can connect these dots. And if you get that, you really put yourself in a very good position.
And I think, Jen, like any role in any company, you need to relate where you fit into it, into the company's purpose and goals, and keep doing that. And I think in the past, maybe travel management was a bit more focused on how we travel, and now it's about why we travel. And again, we regularly survey buyers on this subject, where about 40% of ITM's buyers are actively involved in a conversation in their companies about the return on investment of a trip of travel. It's 40%. Of those, 90% of them do not have a measurement. They're working on it, but they're not close yet. And that's the conversation in the business. Why do we travel? Why do we spend these currencies where it always used to be cost? Now it's also sustainability, it's time, it's risk, it's complexity.
And also on top, one thing, what Karina just mentioned is impact. Okay, so we have a lot of data, but what's the impact? So we need to understand this, and there are more things to come. At the moment, everybody is talking about sustainability. Okay, oh great, sustainability, yeah, let's do it. But how? Yeah, just had a discussion with Marina this morning, who's running a program also to displaying the impact on sustainability. But what does it mean? If you at the end of the day say you have tons of carbon 2 emissions, is it good? Is it bad for your trip? So you just know it. What should you do with it? Yeah, and also what is the comparison by a video conference? Because if you think video conference is carbon 2 free, that's wrong. Yeah, there's also a footprint here, and these are all the things we have to display. At the end, it is the travelers or the manager's decision, because there is a purpose that they go on a business trip. Hopefully there is one. Yeah, and then they need to balance out. Is it really that important that I need to be there in presence? Then you have no choice. Yeah, and also for the future, it will not go without business travel. Yeah, and the question is finally, how much do we have, and also how to doing our carbon offset at the end of the day. But without, I have my doubts.
So I think one of the things we do have to acknowledge is that not all travel managers have been able to keep their positions, or their positions have been reduced and they've had to take something else on. Maybe for some people, like you mentioned, you took on fleet. That's exciting for you, and kind of that broader scope of mobility. But others, depending on the size of organization and what they have made decisions about in terms of how much or how little travel will happen in the future. Some people have been at a point where I absolutely do need to find a way to maybe fit myself into another part of another part of the organization, or conversely. And Scott, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, as we talk about attracting talent into the industry. And I guess this is both on the buyer and supplier side. We want people to think about their transferable skills, right? I think sometimes people might look at a job description and they're like, would I be able to do that? So you have to sort of think about, the skills. I always think of one travel manager that I know pretty well, and she was someone who, very quickly, when we first went into the pandemic, said, what else can I do to bring value to my organization? And the first thing she goes is, even if I'm not working on travel, I have excellent project management skills. And so she proactively went to her manager and said, we know that I can do other types of work that require these skill sets. So Scott, as you've had conversations within ITM as a whole, but also this particular task force, has the idea of transferable skills, has that come up in conversation?
It really does very regularly because during the pandemic, of course, when everything stopped, most travel buyers, managers report through procurement. There are some different ways, but that's the majority. Most procurement leads saw these great adaptable chameleons that can turn their hand to anything apparently and get stuff done, and gave them more responsibility because they perceived there was nothing happening in the travel role. Where, of course, the opposite was true. There was ridiculous amount to be fixed. But I think Catherine, you used the word connector. I think that's a good way of describing it. I think they're collaborators, they're arch collaborators, and they have to do it within the organisation and of course outside in the supplier world as well. So that takes an extraordinary sort of dual level of capability, because travel managers will tell you that their life is very different in the organisation to how it is when they come out to wonderful places like this, and the way that they're interacted with and treated like the true rock stars they are. That isn't always the way they're treated in their own companies. So I think one thing that always occurs to me when we talk about bringing new talent in is that I don't think, and I will stand corrected if this is not true, I don't think that any travel manager grew up wanting to be a travel manager.
I want to be.
Do you know what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a
Did any of you grow up saying, I want to be a travel manager?
Probably not right, but however, they're delighted to be travel managers. It's a great role. You arrive there in a certain path. So sometimes I think we obsess too much about how we're going to get this new talent in. We need to advertise these roles and what they're for. It's a certain set of circumstances that lead you to a great role like this, and you do need to be a very well-rounded individual. And if anything, collaboration and communication in all its forms, written, verbal, persuasion, everything.
Sure. Transferable skills, anything that we haven't talked about already that comes to mind, Katerina?
Listening as well, listening skills, because ultimately the way you can only understand a problem rather than just somebody stating that's my problem is to ask the right questions and then listen, take it all together and potentially reformulate the problem statement. Sometimes what people think the issue is really only what's the surface, and for you to have the right skill of dig down deeper, the why and how, and then really build up what actually is the issue. I think that also is a skill set.
It's a good one. Yeah.
I would add one point, and this is explain complex things easy. I think what we are doing is we are doing extremely complex things. If we talk in our abbreviations and words from a travel, it's difficult to understand for my manager or the manager of a manager. What the hell is he telling me? So we need to understand how to break it down to pieces which someone other do understand. And this has something to do with the signature service and this connect, and try to decomplex things on a level that others can take a decision on that or can judge on that. And this is the other side of the data. Data are complex. 100,000 of data are in the database. Find the 5 ones which are important. Try to explain them and even create some if-then scenarios. What does it mean if we do here something? What does it mean for a certain thing and outcome of my process? I think this is a skill set, is making complex things easy.
Another great one. Well, while we have a few minutes left, I actually wanted to turn to all of you in the audience to see if you have any questions for the panel. And certainly, you can ask them verbally, or if you would prefer, you can send them in through the app, and I can pose them for you.
While you are thinking for a minute, please continue. Also, what definitely comes to my mind, usually each company has an assessment center if people asked to go for a higher role, and very often during this assessment center process, they are confronted with difficult situations. And I think usually when I talk to my colleagues, they are all good in de-escalation. Yeah. Very often you really have to deal with people where things are not going in the right direction. And this is where other people relatively often failed in such assessment centers because they are not used to have to work with things like this. Yeah, usually they are also good people manager. Yeah, even if you have direct reports or not, because we are talking about an extremely emotional area. The cars, so congrats, cars. It's also part of my area. You can talk a lot of things, but don't take away my car. Yeah, and also if something went wrong during your business, because this affects the people personally, and that's a big difference to other departments.
Yeah.
Well, and I think especially right now, being able, there are a lot of high levels of emotion that are connected with travel for various reasons, right? Whether it is travel disruptions, some of the service, challenges that we're experiencing in the industry. So, a travel manager that I was talking to at the hosted buyer conference on Tuesday was like, I'm just like getting beat up on right now by, the travel arrangers. But again, she has the skills to like be able to talk to them, to help them sort of like, I hear you, first of all, right? So being a good listener, right? And making sure you let them know that they're heard, but then being able to communicate back sort of why certain things are happening and helping to problem solve again for how can we look at this in another way. Questions from anyone in the audience? This is your chance to pick their brains.
Come on. Okay.
So, just by a show of hands, how many of you have your roles shifted pretty significantly in the past few years? Yeah, taking on more, just other areas, or just other responsibilities within travel. Abena, do you mind sharing?
Well, it's a couple of things. I think it's a couple of things. First of all, is the depth and breadth. How many more things we'll have to do within travel, but at the same time, I think, Christoph, you picked it very well. You said that, I'm attached to the procurement organization, so during the pandemic, there was not much travel, from the top perspective. So I got many more other things to do within other categories, procurement categories. So now with travel back, I sit with much more work to do overall, and the whole complexity of travel. And then, of course, it's another thing that it's more business related, that we have been sold to another company during the last year and a half, and we're in this process where we have to merge programs across companies. So it's different. Not everything is related to COVID, but yeah. And I have a question, or at least curious about your opinion. Talking with some other peers, I have heard that it's easy, or the industry sees it as degrading your profile if you would like to move from the buyer side to the supplier side, but not the other way around. And that suppliers are not willing to take talent from the buyer side, even though we have the insights into the industry and so on and so forth. How does this help attracting talent and make this mobility across the different verticals?
What a great question. We could have a whole hour on that subject. It's such a good question. Very often, travel buyers tend to come from the supplier side originally, don't they? Somewhere down the line. That's sometimes how they get their experience of the industry. Now, if you come from a separate part of procurement, that wouldn't be the case. But you're right. I think there are relatively less vacancies on the supplier side now for people that are coming from the buyer side. I think wholly wrong. If you're a supplier, whether it be a TMC or any kind of supplier, frankly, why would you not want to pay whatever it takes to get this kind of capability and experience, what you've all lived through, what you can give, the way you've lived through the changing priorities of your businesses, where sustainability's risen up, how you're being targeted. I think you should be able to write your own salary to come into a supplier.
A buyer is going, the insights that suppliers would get from hiring a buyer. Or it's
It happens a lot on public sector side. So
Yeah.
often the suppliers tend to be happy to take a public sector sort of government agency kind of procurement person because they find that world so difficult to understand. So you need someone that can come in and decode it for you. It doesn't happen as much in other areas, and I agree with you. I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Maybe also to comment on this, as long as you are still thinking about the next question. It's a really interesting one, and also what you have mentioned we can discuss for an hour for sure, at least. For me, it's always relevant when I'm looking for someone new, if somebody is engaged, open-minded, and fits into my team. Yeah. Even if sometimes maybe not the whole background is at that level where I would like to see it, but if somebody is engaged and more or less curious, yeah, and also to learn, and not only comes with a let's say the pure view from that what they were coming from, that would make it extremely difficult. And I have a very good experience just recently in my team where I hired someone who was working for an airline and was supposed to be my account manager before. And but it is more the attitude of this person, yeah. And I was already thinking, and that was really a coincidence when I had my first meeting with her many years ago. The way she was, on one hand, representing her company, but also the view on the whole industry she had. I was thinking, besides the business content, if someone like her would apply for a job for me, I would hire her immediately. And then I had the chance, and I did it. Yeah.
Love that story. All right. Last chance for questions. Going once? Going twice?
Okay.
Well, I think with that said, we'll go ahead and wrap. So I want to thank our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank all of you for coming today. And just as a reminder, when you get that little notification here in the next few minutes, if you can go in and fill out the post-session survey, that would be very helpful as we plan. First of all, it'll help us to give feedback to the panel, but also as we plan future Business Travel Show Europe content. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.